Good morning and good afternoon, depending on what coast you're on. Welcome to Fit Chat, Chit Chat. I am your hostess, Devondria Sanchez, also known as the Fit Therapist, founder, owner, and client of Finding Inner Transformation, where we believe a fit mindset is more than the physical, but it is spiritual and mental. And when you have all of those three working in conjunction, you can be the best version of yourself. Well, I am super excited. And I will be remiss to say that I'm actually honored and humbled for today's show. We have two amazing women who, even though they're different stories, they hold the same resiliency, growth, and strength that they've endured as going through their process. So I'm thankful to have a friend, a sister on today who was willing to be vulnerable enough and share this space. So normally I do have more than one person on, but I think that in light of their stories and the impact that I believe that they're going to bring to everyone that's listening, that we're going to have them on individually. So I'm going to allow my guest to introduce herself, but I have known this beauty for about 5.5 years, and I am thankful to have been part of her journey and looked at some of her resiliency with my physical eyes, but feel her journey spiritually. So I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, and then we will get started. So, Miss Sarita.
Hi, I'm Sarita McKinney. First, I want to say thank you so much, Devondria, for having me on. I think this is a beautiful platform that will affect and help so many people. Like I said, I'm Sarita McKinney, and like Devondria said, we met about 5.5 years ago during my last pregnancy. I am a 15-year Navy vet. I have three beautiful live children. Uh, I'm a doula. I don't know what to say about introducing myself. I've
Yeah.
traveled. I'm from Hawaii, but I feel like I'm from everywhere. Being in the military, I've had the honor of meeting amazing people like Devondria, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Sarita. And when she say three beautiful children, y'all, them eyes are big and bright. They are just like beautiful children. So one of the reasons why I specifically invited Sarita is because I know a little bit about her history with loss and miscarriage. And sometimes we think about loss and we think about people that were near and dear to us or that had been living for a long time. And there's not a lot of conversation about miscarriages. And from my own research, I recognize that it's a little more common than people think. And I know for most women, little girls, I mean, one of the things that they aspire to be more than anything is a mommy. And for my own desire, I can remember being young and thinking about when I will be a mom. And so when I think about that and I think about Sarita, yes, she has three amazing, beautiful, as she said, live children, but that wasn't the whole case, was it, Sarita?
No, it was not. It's funny that you said little girls think about being a mom. I had one instance in childhood where I thought about being a mom. Just one. And it came out of nowhere. I was shocked by it. I was a tomboy who played outside, who was in the dirt digging up worms, scraping my knees. And that one instance, I was 9. I came in from scraping my knee and laid down on the couch because that's what my mom's remedy was. Lay down, sit down somewhere. And I ended up taking a nap and I had a dream about pregnancy and birth. And I dreamt that I was pregnant and I dreamt that I was in labor. And then, crazy to be a 9-year-old thinking this. And then I
Wow.
woke up and I felt like I lost my baby at 9 years old. I cried on the couch by myself. And then I felt like, oh, I shouldn't even know this. We didn't talk about this stuff in my house.
Yeah.
And so I just went on about my life. And I didn't think about kids anymore until I was 18 and the doctors wanted to give me a hysterectomy and said
Wow.
that I would never have kids again.
At
And my mom
18.
was all for it. But good thing I had just at 18. Good thing I had just turned 18 because my mom was on board. The doctor wanted it to happen. I said no. Find an alternative, and they did. And then afterward, they told me I would never be able to carry children.
Let me
at
stop you right
18.
there, Sarita. Let me stop you. So, and by the way, audience, please, as usual, feel free to ask questions or give comments or feedback. But what was going on to where they would even question about a hysterectomy at 18 years old?
So in my mother's side of the family, there's a history in the women of cancer. And then I just found out that around this time, I think it was 1998, 99 time frame. Around this time, a lot of young women went through this procedure where they said that there were lesions in their uterus and it could lead to cancer and it needed to be removed. I thought
Wow.
I was the only one who went through it. I just in the past 4 months found out that there was a whole slew of women who came in the military and got put on hold for this procedure at that same
Wow.
time. So they did some kind of laser cutting of all of my lining of my uterus. And
Oh my
I'm a
goodness.
child. I don't know. I'm just like, don't take it all. At some point, I think I want to be a mom. Don't take all of it. And
Wow.
so that was the alternative. And then, like I said, after they say your lining will probably never repair enough for you to carry a child. So from that, though, I said, for some reason, that dream when I was 9 stuck with me, and it
Hmm.
planted a seed of faith that couldn't be. It couldn't be moved. I
Wow.
said, no, I had a dream. I'm supposed to be a mom. I will be a mom. And so when I joined the Navy, I was told, they take you through physicals. I was told that I had a polyp on my cervix, which would make me sterile, which is
Mm.
benign. It was benign. It's a benign tumor, but they wouldn't remove it because they said the only thing it's getting in the way of is you being a mom, and that doesn't really benefit the military. So we're gonna leave
Wow.
it there. So they never removed it actually. At one point, I think I was 20 or 21, laying in my barracks room bed, and I said, at some point I want to be a mom, and I don't want this polyp to, grow into something bigger. And I remember laying on my bed, and I started to pray, but then I passed out. I felt like I was in a meditative state, and
Hmm.
I was praying for. I said, well, since they won't come get this tumor, God, can you come get this tumor? Take it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I left it alone. And 2 years later, I got pregnant. And I was with my soon to be husband at the time. But within 30 days, uh, I was told that it was ectopic and they needed to remove it. And I was given a shot that I think it was forced an abortion. It just flushed my whole reproductive system out because they couldn't find the egg. So they said it was in my tubes and it could explode and all these things.
So, Sarita,
So that was my first.
real quick, so when you talk about a ectopic pregnancy, I'm not sure if everybody knows what that means, but you were starting to go down that it was stuck in your tubes. And I would imagine, and I'm no medical anything doctor, but for someone to hear those words and they couldn't find it, what was going on mentally with you? What was going on in your mind when you heard that? Because you've had these significant phases from 9 years old, I want to be a mommy, to 18 years old, they want to take your uterus as a girl. 18, you're a girl, and your mom clearly didn't know.
Mm-hmm,
She's listening to the doctor like most people would. And then
mm-hmm,
to then come 2 years later, I mean, going to the military, they say that you have this polyp, but don't worry about it because we don't expect no babies right now in the military. And then to follow through. What was going on mentally with all these challenges to even be a mom? Clearly a gift you thought about at 9.
well, at that point, to know me is to know that I'm stubborn. When I get something in my head, it's I'm gonna make it happen. Okay, whether it be with my own physical will or with with God, anything, all things will align to pull together what Sarita wants. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I know that's
thank
right.
you. And I say at that point because even though to look at all those things now, I could look at it and go, wow, all of those things, even one by themselves, could have been defeating. I'm telling you, that seed that was planted when I was 9 created a faith that was not shattered easily.
Mm-hmm.
However, later it did become shattered, But at that point, I was a runner. So they told me, the first time they told me, it's ectopic, you're gonna lose this baby. I said, the devil is alive, and I ran up out of
No,
that
that's right.
emergency room.
Oh, that's right.
But to be in the military is you're their property. So they kept coming and getting me, putting me back in
Mm,
that hospital. And when they finally did the shot, they kind of had to detain me to take me in because for me it
mm.
was if I'm gonna lose the baby, let it happen naturally.
Wow. Yeah.
But for them it was we're trying to protect our property. If you
Mm,
pass because you're trying to hold on to a baby, we lose all this we have invested in. So
wow.
it was, I signed up for it and uh, but it kind of shook me, but still, to me, also for me, when something happens that's out of your hands and out of your control, it was meant to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and at that time, I'm gonna just say I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah. Right.
Later on, I was able to look at it that way. And then with that topic, I was able to look at there was absolutely nothing I could do about a baby who implanted outside of my uterus.
Wow.
I couldn't do anything about that. So I just continued to have faith. Okay, so now I know the next baby I gotta ask for them to implant inside my uterus where they can grow and
Mm-hmm.
do what needs to happen. And so, but the next pregnancy was unexpected, and I found out about the pregnancy the same time I found out I was losing the baby. So I think I didn't have enough time to uh, not process, but become involved and intimately connected yet. But it was
Right.
still a loss. It was still like, oh, should I have known? And now I'm going to take a pregnancy test every month, whether I'm trying or not.
Right.
So
Do you think it made you fearful to get pregnant again? I mean, I know you said you didn't have time to attach or process before getting pregnant again, but was there do you remember having any of those fears of getting pregnant again and this may happen over?
no, because there was still the stubbornness of now I got to
Okay.
get pregnant again. I got to get pregnant again. I got to get pregnant because it
So it
was like
made you
no baby
more
without
persistent.
pregnancy.
It made you more
Yes.
persistent. Okay.
Hmm.
Wow.
And so, but then also, my husband said, because the doctor said it's not healthy for you to keep getting pregnant and losing a baby. Your body needs to process that, and I wasn't giving it enough time to process. It was just like,
Yeah.
that's what my body's made for. Let's have a baby.
Yeah.
So I just wanted it more, is what it was. Because to me, it looked like I was supposed to have a 2-year-old by now. So let's go. I'm ready for my baby. So,
Hmm.
but the doctor said it wasn't healthy for my body. So my husband said, let's talk to the doctors and see what we can do to figure out at least if we're gonna keep trying how to make it a healthy try.
Right.
And so we started fertility treatment, which um, they start on the lower level, and I ended up only having to do the testing to make sure there was no blockages, which there weren't. And then I ended up getting on medicine that they use for cancer patients and diabetes or something, because he said my estrogen needed to be increased, is what it was.
Okay.
And 3 months later, he said we caught a fish.
Okay. Now how old were you when this was happening? Like how old by now were you?
So the second pregnancy, I was 24. By the
Okay.
time I got pregnant with my oldest now, I was 25. So I'll say from 2002, I was pregnant every year to 2011.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
do we know how
So,
many pregnancies that was specifically?
yes, I have a total, I have 11 children. I have three living,
Wow.
two sets of twins, six pregnancies. The
Wow.
six pregnancies that didn't make it through. So 2026 is the year I had my oldest finally, but it was with fertility treatment. Um, However, by this time, my faith was shaken.
Yeah.
Everybody told me, don't get your hopes up. Everywhere I
Yeah.
went, because everybody knew about my losses, nobody was giving me hope except for my mother-in-law was the only one. She said, don't tell anybody about any pregnancies. Talk to me. We're going to pray about it. The devil won't take another one of my grandbabies. So,
Wow. Well, that just gave me chills.
yeah, it gave me chills because she was confident. She knew this next one would be my first uh, grandchild by you. And I didn't know at that point.
Yeah.
And I realized that the best thing for me to do at that point was to take my hands off of it. I couldn't
Yeah.
hope and I didn't want to fear because I understood that fear created something that wasn't healthy for me. So I let her have it and hold it. And I kind of disconnected until the special, even though the specialist told me that baby's in there. You don't have to worry
Absolutely.
about it. Uh,
Yes. Wow. So 11, I don't know if people heard that, 11 total pregnancies and 3 live children. I'm
no,
sorry, 11
11
children,
babies. So
11 babies, because there was a set of
mhm,
twins, couple sets of twins in there,
two sets. Mhm.
2 sets of twins. Wow. And you said your faith was shaken. What alternative, like what emotion though was there? If I know for me, if my faith is disappointment, I don't know if there was any other, was there anger, was it feeling like life wasn't fair? What was going on for you during that process?
Before that, before being pregnant with my oldest, what was going on was I felt like I'm not even a woman. I can't even do what
Mm,
women were created to do. Women who
wow.
don't even, and I'm not proud of this now. I would think to myself, women who don't even want their babies get to have babies. And
Wow.
now I look back like, how dare I? But I was in such a broken place
Sure. Yeah.
that I was just like, can I have a baby? Yeah, I would pray. I would be mad at God, and then I would pray some more. It was like,
Right.
I know you're there,
Right.
but I'm there.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because there's so many women who want to conceive or to have a baby, and it's not as easy as some people think it can be. I mean, we know those women that could get looked at and get pregnant, and we know those women who have tried time after time, and I would imagine that getting mad at God, feeling like you're not a woman, you know, who am I created to be if I'm supposed to multiply? I mean, we've all heard that, be fruitful,
Yes.
multiply, and now you're struggling with that before your
Hmm.
first one. Absolutely, that sounds normal to me, that you would then be struggling with that. So, I mean, just wow. Katrina says, way to be an advocate for yourself when you were constantly going there with the doctor and challenging those things. So I'm just reading the comment. But yeah, go ahead.
Thank
So
you.
mother-in-law's like, the devil is
And
a lie.
thank you for that because I didn't even have an outlet. Uh, I would sit by myself, separate from everybody, and just cry and rage and talk to myself and all the things because people didn't really understand it, and I think it was because a lot of people didn't talk about it. But I'm a talker, so I'm like, let's talk about this. Can we talk about this? But nobody was comfortable, so I kind of isolated myself. And but after I had my first baby, um, I said, great. Now, whenever I decide, it's easy. I can have a baby. I can get pregnant. And to me,
Mm,
after her, I said, it's possible. And so now all I have to do is get pregnant when we decide. So um, it didn't go that way. That's when majority of the losses happened was after her. And that's
mm,
mostly when the anger came and the loss of faith and the losing friends because people would, say, why don't you just get over it? Why aren't you just grateful for the one you had? Some people can't ever have them. And for me, I'm going to create the life I desire. Okay. I'm not trying to fit a cookie cutter life. This is
Yeah.
Sarita, and I want another baby. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but after so many losses, though, we both became defeated. A lot of losses and us not knowing how to handle it. We didn't know who to go to work through that grief.
Yeah.
Um, one set of twins I lost at 5 months, so
Oh
it
my.
was a lot of it was at different levels in the process. Then a lot of people's ideas about it. People would ask me, "Did you can be honest? You had abortions, didn't you?" And it was like, "Do you know how hard I'm fighting to keep these
Oh my
kids
goodness.
alive in
Yeah.
my belly?" And that is a defeat that I don't think I could ever feel, is to do all you can to be healthy in your pregnancy and then still be told, um, you we lost a heartbeat. It's like, what can I do? What am I doing wrong? But
Right.
you know,
Sure.
but it took a lot for me to come to the space of knowing that I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Let let me ask you something.
because I
So at 5 months, most people are preparing for the baby to come home. And for you in this situation, it's two.
mhm.
Did you already have things planned? Was there like creating baby shower rooms, or do you think some of that previous loss had you a little skeptical or vigilant about making those big plans, even at 5 months?
Yeah, so many losses had got us to the point where we didn't prepare for babies. We didn't, even our oldest, we didn't have her baby shower until within that 30-day window of her being born. Um,
Wow.
but even I think it altered the way we behaved as people. So without even thinking, we just stopped preparing for babies. We just stopped doing the things that people who don't go through that loss naturally do, like talking about a
Mhm.
baby and looking at names. And we
Yeah.
didn't do that ever until at least the last trimester. And it was still hesitant. It was still,
Yeah.
everything's tentative, because I could become very broken after a loss.
Yeah.
And it was like we always kept in mind to be careful not to pour myself too much into it. And that's what I wanted to get to, is by the last two, we had already given up. I hadn't been pregnant for 2, 3 years by then. And the doctors actually told me they think I got lupus.
Oh my.
They said
Right.
they
You
tested me
just
for everything. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying you just had stuff getting thrown at you. Like they kept a diagnosis and prognosis on you, right? Wow.
Yes. My
Wow.
coworker said, "Did they test you for pregnancy?" And I
Right.
said, "I don't think I'm pregnant." She said, "Well, at least let's knock it out, that option out." And so I took it to, I'm telling you, I tell people the vapors didn't hit that stick before them lines came up strong. Like, yeah, girl, you pregnant?
Right. Right. Wow. And you not even thinking that could even be an
But
option.
this is the thing. When I got pregnant, my oldest was 7, and she had been asking for a sister. And I had been telling her, it's not that easy, babe. She's too young to know, to go
Yeah.
through that discussion, I thought. And, but listen, she was like, listen, since y'all not listening, I'm gonna go talk to God. This little girl went in her room and prayed and said exactly what she wanted. I want a sister. I'm waiting for you to bring it to me. Within 3 months, I was pregnant, but didn't know until almost 3 months into that pregnancy. And then when I found out, we were like, don't tell her. She's old enough to know now. We're trying to
Yeah.
protect her. We told her when I was 6 months pregnant, and she was mad. I'm
Right.
pregnant, this baby. How
Right.
dare y'all not tell
Our
me?
child. Yeah. This is our child
Yeah.
that I prayed for. Yes, indeed.
That's what she said.
Wow.
She said, I get to name her. Even before they kept saying, well, we're going to find out the sex. Do you want to know the sex? You know, they doing her like they do all little kids. She said, I already know what it is. It's a girl, because that's what I asked God for.
Oh,
So after she was born, I, somebody said, are you done having babies? Because I was 34, 35 when I had my second baby. Um, they said, are you done having babies? And I was on the phone. I said, I'm done. This old body can't take it no more. I can't carry another baby. I'm happy to have my second. That's all I really asked for.
right.
I'm going to, you know, go with my two babies. I got off the phone. She said, I'm sorry, Mom. We already prayed for a brother, so you're going to have a boy. Listen, my husband was out to sea. I had a brand new baby already. I said, but I had already known the way her
Right.
faith is set up. I'm about to have a baby. I dreamt
Right.
about that baby later. He dreamt about a boy later. The second we came back together from his deployment, I got pregnant with a boy.
Yes. 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 And he is beautiful.
Thank you.
So I'm just, I mean, I got chills even thinking about the experience that you had because I think the last time I read, it's about 1 in 3 women will have one miscarriage within their life. That is a lot of women who are going after, whether they intentionally or unintentionally. And to me, if you're laying down, you're intentional. But,
Mm,
going after to be a mother and may not have that opportunity. And you talked about some of the things that women could be feeling. It's like defeat, feeling like you're not a woman, and your faith being shook, being angry at God and going through, I think, normal grief and loss. And sometimes it's, yeah, I haven't met this person, but they're in my body. Like I'm looking forward to bringing life and
yes.
for that not to happen. And so I want to ask you before I shift a little bit is what would you tell a woman if she was in front of you and she has experienced miscarriage and she's afraid to get pregnant again? What would you tell her, being that you've been in your experiences of that?
Um, I would, and I have told women, and this is just my suggestion, detach from the fear, because fear
Mm.
to me is poison. Um,
Whew.
fear can create something you don't want to happen. Uh,
Yeah.
if you can, affirm what you want, speak what you want, because words have power.
Yes.
Um, but also thoughts have power. If your fear is just eating you up inside, I had to think about how can a baby survive in that environment of fear. Do I
Yeah.
want my baby to sit in an environment of fear? So for me, what it took for me to detach from fear was to allow other people to carry it. Um,
Mm.
I wish I could have detached and carried the hope myself, but because I had to really look at myself and know that I was so attached to wanting a baby so bad that the
Yeah.
fear just came as soon as I found out I was pregnant. And so my focus had to be on disconnect from that, allow the person it I was I'm grateful to have had people outside of me who carried that faith for me. First with
Yeah.
my mother-in-law, and the last two times with my 8-year-old, 10-year-old at the time,
Yeah.
but connect to me, it helps also to connect to somebody who holds that space for you, where you
Yeah.
can just disconnect from it. Somebody full on believes and knows that things will work out for your best interest, for your good. And then
Yeah.
you can step back from it and really take care of yourself internally.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Woo, you just put a whole word. Let me, and because what I think most people don't realize is fear, as you said, is toxic. There is chemical energy that happens and you inflame your body. So we're not just talking
Yes,
about, oh, mentally, because you shouldn't be fearful. We're talking about actually a physiological change that happens. You are now in the state of survival, fight or flight or freeze,
yes.
where there is chemicals that start dumping from your brain into your body and hijacks it. And
Mhm.
so, when Sarita is talking, she's not only talking about just like being, motivational speaking, rah, rah. No, she's talking from a physiological standpoint. And so I love what you said is when I couldn't do it, I had to connect to other people who would do it for me, because we all
Mm-hmm.
know that we need this tribe. I don't know why people think they can do all things by themselves. We weren't even created to be
Mm-hmm.
doing things alone in that way.
No.
Um, but when you can't, how vulnerable you have to be to reach out when you may have those feelings of inadequacy or fear. And that's what's amazing,
Mm-hmm.
that you were at least in enough framework, in the mindset of being able to connect, and even the words out of kids. I mean, we know how God can use babies now and children.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
let me just tell you, when you think your child is just talking, no, pay close attention, to the things that they're saying, especially because of their innocence and their lack of the walk in regular daily life. So
Uh-huh.
wow, that's beautiful. All right. So
Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask, and if there's anyone who wants to ask Sarita a question, please just chime in or give comments. If you're watching this recording after, then I would tell you to definitely still leave your comments and we can get them to Sarita. And she would, I'm sure she would love to answer those questions. So with
Yes.
having these pregnancies and feeling joy and happiness, I would imagine, and that may even still come with some level of maybe extra attachment. I don't know. I found that to be true in certain people's case, that they find themselves being overly connected and attached. So that whole helicopter, no, it comes into drone, like I'm coming in.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that, and then postpartum depression.
Well, I think it's so funny that I mean, this is working the way it's supposed to flow. Um, that led to the postpartum, I think. Also, the hormonal changes, but
Yeah.
because, so still touching on fear, just because I was able to um, let somebody hold the faith during the pregnancy, that didn't mean that it went away after the baby was born. But I wasn't prepared because I wasn't aware. Um, so when my oldest was born, I was the hover parent. And I was left to be though, because being in the military, my family wasn't around. And she was born a month early, so my in-laws planned to come on her due date. So that's when they came, so for a whole month. It was me and her. And I realized I have to keep this human alive. Like, thank
Mhm.
you, Lord, and thank you, mother-in-law, for praying, and thank you all you people. But now it's just me by myself who has to keep this little person alive, and I don't know what to do. But then also the fear crept in of, I'm telling you, words in my head where, you're not supposed to have this baby. You
Mm.
know, you don't know when you're going to lose her. Just because she's outside of your belly doesn't mean you can't lose her. You could probably lose her faster with her being outside of your belly. It was so
Ooh.
much around me. And I was by myself with her all day with these words and a crying baby. And every time she would choke or hiccup, I thought, this is it. She's gone. Um, it was super high anxiety. And I think that led to, also coupled with the hormonal changes, led to um, some level of depression. I don't even know what it was because I didn't get help. When
Yeah.
it started happening, I didn't know what it was. My husband didn't know what it was. I think this was his first experience of fully raising a child in his house. And so for him, it was like, women are supposed to do this. This is what you're created to do. What are we doing here? Like,
You're
why are
right.
you crying?
Right.
What's
Yeah.
happening? You had the baby. She survived. Like, it's supposed to be a happy time. And, from his perspective, he'd always been around women who they never talked about the struggle. It was just, this is
Right.
what I'm supposed to do. And so I sucked it up. I didn't seek help because I didn't feel like I felt like another voice. And now you got the nerve to ask for help, like for some
Right.
depression. Haven't you been helped enough? You got a baby. You got what you want. Suck it up and just be happy. So I buried it. and
Wow.
I went along with her. But then the losses piled on, the trauma from all the losses, everything on top of everything. And I just kept putting it on my shoulders. You can carry it. You're strong. We're built for this, because that's what I kept hearing.
Right.
Women are built for this. Um, so I never got help. I never dealt with the losses. I never did anything until the second pregnancy. Because I was looking at my baby, my 7-year-old, who prayed for this baby, and I thought, my babies deserve better. Uh, I need to take care of myself so that I can take care of them. And so that's, I'm pregnant and finally reaching out for like grief and loss support groups,
Yeah.
honoring my babies. I never honored my babies. And that hurt the most, is because I ignored them and just let them be forgotten. Um,
Mm.
and then she started asking about them. And so a lot of the stuff I went through was to help her through the grief and loss. Because I didn't know until we did that. She said she knew I was losing babies, but she didn't understand it. Nobody
Mm.
talked to her about it. And so for her, she was doing the same thing as me. Is I was like, okay, I lost a baby. Now let's keep trying to have a baby. For her, she's
Right.
like, oh, why y'all stop? I need a sister. Like,
Right.
so that when I had my second though, I think with all the stuff piled on, uh, that was the second level of postpartum. But then also she had medical challenges, and I have a husband who's deployed all the time. I muscled through it. I did get some counseling, but mostly it was muscling through it and
Yeah.
leaning on my support group that I had found more. But then when the third baby came, uh, he deployed 30 days after this one was born.
Yeah.
30 days. I had no family around, three babies. My oldest felt neglected. I just felt like, and also the voice was still there. You're gonna lose these babies.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose these babies. The second one, every medical problem, every time the ambulance had to come get her, she's not coming back. But I didn't feel
Oh,
like I
Lord.
had anybody to talk to about that. And then
Yeah.
so the youngest one, the simplest thing would throw me off. And I got to the point where I thought, I'm not okay for these kids.
Yeah.
Nobody else is here for them. If I lose it, they're in here by themselves. Um, and
Let
also,
me
I did not.
interject real quick, Sarita. Let me just
Okay.
like condense some of that because you spoke on a whole lot of things that I can tell you. I sit on our local maternal mental health committee and that women are dealing with that they are not talking about. I mean, I'm almost want to tear up. Um, wow, just thinking about women who have to sit alone with that, with those thoughts, because those thoughts can range from anywhere between the hover parent to doing harm to a child. And people don't understand when
Yes.
your hormonal changes and when you don't seek help and you just suppress it, we think we're suppressing, but just transfers. So that anxiety you were feeling, that
Yes.
fear that was coming up, and those voices that were playing in your head, which we know was the enemy. And number two, we know that
Yeah.
that was a transference of energy that people weren't dealing with. And so you got these women who feel alone
Yeah.
because the shame, oh, I finally got this baby. I think you said it. And now am I adequate enough? Or what's going to happen? I can't even take care of a child. So all these things that people sit with and don't seek mental health counseling. And that's one part. The other part that you mentioned is I never honored my babies. I just like it went on, I just muscled through it was the term you used. And
Mm.
instead of processing that, connecting to that you went through a significant loss several times, not one time. I mean, you had 11 babies, that three, thank you, God, that, you have with you, but you still got the other ones that you didn't get a chance to even honor. And so
Mm.
that was just, wow. I mean, the fact that you could sit here today and just kind of talk about that, but be in a place that you know that this is why I'm the mom I am now, right? The resiliency that I am now, but it didn't go without, like you said, the fears were coming up. So how many other women we know are just sitting there muscling through a trauma, several traumas?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And so then she mentioned her husband was deployed 30 days after her last one. And if anybody knows anything about the military life, which I know, and I definitely have, with my last one too, my husband deployed, started work, I was about 6 weeks old. And, we're looking for that steady hand. Just because you're a mom and we think we know what to do, we still are looking for that support, but that's not something you get. And you, like myself, families thousands of miles away. And so you're having to deal with it. And so tell me what that, after the 30 days he leaves, you got the oldest one who's kind of fending it out. And I know her daughter's very intelligent, very insightful young lady. So thank God that she's blessed with that knowledge and wisdom. And then you got a little one who's getting to the hospital, ambulance is coming to get her for her medical stuff. And now we got Bubba's. We got Bubs.
Yeah. I don't, so I have to say that time was such a blur.
Yeah.
It was such a blur. I was running on fumes. I like to tell people that something else took over because I think my soul disconnected. Um,
Mm.
like the passion and the drive in me kind of, I don't want to say died. I thought it did at the time. I became somebody else. I became somebody who just was about routine, survival, trying to make it work. But then at the end of the night, I was crying because I thought my kids deserve more than this. They deserve more. It's got to be more than this. There has to be better than this. But at the time, I also understood my circumstances. But also, thankfully, I had a wonderful community who, even though sometimes I didn't know what to ask for, you and a few other women would just show up. It's like there was that one moment where I thought to myself, I'm not okay. I hadn't slept for 3 days. My brand new baby, I don't know what he was going through, but he cried all night and slept all day. And I was like,
Right.
I can't sleep all day, sir, because I got a 20-month-old on me here and
Yeah.
another kid who needs to be fed. So I was up all day taking care of two girls, up all night trying to snuggle my baby boy. And I
Yeah.
pushed as far as I could because to me, I felt like I couldn't ask anybody. But the reality was that I could. However, at that point, I was so, I think, I don't know what happened, a lot of things that made me not think clearly. I was not thinking clearly. And I just tried. So for the third day that I hadn't slept, I think my husband called. He called every day, and I would just go, "We're good, we're good, we're good." Finally, that day, I said, "I'm gonna call CPS. I think somebody needs to come get our kids because I'm trying to remember things were going through my brain that I knew was not safe. Like
Yeah.
I knew I would wake up every day and think, I think oh, that's what was happening. I would think if I died, people would show up to take care of them. If
Mm.
I was not here, then um, a group of people would surround my kids and take care of them.
Wow.
So, I mean, this to me made sense in my head.
Yeah.
So while I'm here, all they have is me, which is not enough. But if I'm gone, everybody would surround them and they would get what
Wow.
they need. And then I think the third day I woke up and thought, this is not okay. If I'm
Yeah.
gone, who would find them? How long would my kids be in here by themselves? And so that's when I said I need to, and I called CPS and said, hey, I think somebody needs to come get my kids. I'm not, the way I'm thinking is not safe for them. And um, Stacy, my husband, reached out to, I didn't know this at the time, but he sent out a call to the world and said,
Yes.
please,
Can I touch on that, please?
yes,
So
please.
I didn't know that was going on in your thoughts. Obviously, you went back from irrational to rational, irrational to rational. You couldn't stay there. I mean, I didn't even know you called Child Protective Services on yourself to say this ain't right, this is not safe. But I end up getting a call from her husband, and I this is how God works. So Toya, let me read the comment. Says, wow, God will give you a word when you need it. And she said that a while back on something you were saying, but I'm going to go back to reframe that to say, yes, he will, because out of all days, and if anybody know me, I don't take off work. I took off work this particular day, and we're talking at least 4 years ago, I'm assuming, right? About three, 7 years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
took off work this day, and the kids were off, and I remember taking off, saying, I never take off. I'm gonna stay here today. My husband, everybody was off but me. I don't know what kind of holiday, maybe President's Day or something. An hour after I called off, her husband calls my phone, and the area code, I don't think I had his number, but the area code made sense. So wherever it was, probably aligned with somebody else, either Alabama, Virginia, or something like that. I don't know. But I picked it up, and he said, this is, Mr. McKinney. I said, yes. And he said, I need you to go to our house. And I just remember saying, okay, what's up? And he said, it's just, she needs some help. She needs to sleep. She needs someone. And I didn't know who else to call, but I'm calling you to see if you will go by there. Absolutely, 100%. I get to the house, and I just remember my friend looking like a deer in headlights. And it was not the bubbly Sarita that I know, like the hey girl, the porch talking, tea sipping. And I'm like, yeah, give me them babies. Go ahead, and we're going to pack up. And I said, what is it that you need right now? And I can remember the only thing that you could really muster up is sleep. I need sleep. And we just start packing. Me and that oldest beauty start putting stuff in there, whatever you get. And, just and so that leads me to, what did you know about your spouse, obviously at that time, that you were giving him information like, we're good. But then I call in CPS, like, what was going on for him that you guys either talked about or you noticed or reflectively can look back on?
Well, for us through life, this is just how I am with him. Okay, people who don't know us, he's like another one of my babies. He was my first baby, actually.
Okay.
I have always felt the need to take care of him and protect him. And because I was in the military and I have been out to sea, and I think when we got stationed over there and had the last two babies was his first experience being out to sea. So I felt the need to prepare him. But then I also remember people having to stress out about stuff that went on back at home while they needed to do this dangerous work on a flight line. So I always said to myself, I will figure it out before I send that stress to him.
Mm.
Especially with him being on the flight line. I want you to come home. That was always what I said to you. You better
Right.
come home. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't be leaving me
Yeah.
with these babies.
Yeah. Yeah. I trust me. I
But
know.
so when all the things was going on, even though I was not clear in my mind, I think that had gone on for so long that it was routine. I didn't even have to think. It just happened without me knowing that when he would ask, how are you guys doing? I just knew, don't tell him. Don't tell him. He don't need to think about this while he's sending off, aircraft. I need him to come home. So don't worry about it. Nothing I can't figure out. But that day, I said, I already planned on calling CPS. I was just waiting for him to call because I also never want him to call and be shocked about what's happening. So I was waiting for him to call so he knew I'm calling CPS to come get our kids.
Mm.
I don't know what you have to do, but I need them to be safe. And I need you to be safe. And I need me to be safe. So um, now we've had discussions about it since then, and now I understand how it was so hard for him to go from we're good, even though he knows me and he knows she's not good. And I know she's trying to just muscle through it like she always do. But I don't think he understood that it was that severe. And
Yeah.
I think it was very shocking for him to go from, okay, she's not okay to, yo, what? Somebody coming to get my kids and you
Right.
talking about you don't want to live. And it was a lot for him to have so quickly and to process. So I think that's why he sent out the call to the world. Like, I can't even think no more. I'm in the middle of the ocean and I don't know if my family's okay.
Right.
Um, so I think for him, also through the losses and through the postpartum, what he typically would do is kind of what it looked like to me was detach. For him, after discussion, he didn't want to make it worse. So he just like took his, like I don't want to touch
Yeah.
it because I don't want to break it. So
Right. Right. Right.
let me just stand over here because I know you
Right.
know what to do.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
almost probably a feeling of helplessness too, even if he couldn't
it
process
was,
that. Men are fixers. So if they want to
yes.
fix it, but if they can't fix it, then it's almost a feeling of helplessness.
Yeah, that's what he said too. He didn't know how to fix it. And so he's like, let me just take my hands off of it. And to me,
Yeah.
it was like, no, put your hands on it.
Right. I know. I know. Yeah. Yeah. But that, I think that goes with grief and loss. And you make a good point is like, and I often hear this when I run grief groups is like, when do I come in and when do I don't? Because as women
Yeah,
too, we want to be able, like, there's times we don't want you to fix it and there's times that we do,
yeah,
but I don't know. And this
yeah,
don't come with an instruction book. So this don't sound like something I can
yeah,
do. And so we just kind of stay out of it as men would speak about those things and how to
right.
support a partner. Yeah.
And I don't think I realized then that it was, oh, I fix it or I have to take my hands off. To me, it was like neither one of us know what to do. To me, it was like, as long as we're here together, I know that we'll be okay. Like, I just felt like I needed somebody to like pull me back together and hold my pieces
Yeah.
together. I felt like I was falling apart, and then I didn't have anybody to help me. I'm like, oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute, let me pull that together.
Yeah.
Help me out here. And he like, I don't
Yeah.
know how the puzzle's supposed to go. So
Right. Right, which is a interesting part because, like you said, it's always felt the need to take care of him. He was my first one, so how
yeah,
do I change positions in
yeah,
this when I'm so used to her being that almost like this
yep,
super woman,
yep,
and Superwoman's cape and little gold straps is broken, and but she got another pair. I know she
yeah.
got another pair. But you saying like, no, these little force shields, they ain't doing,
They're not working.
they ain't clicking no more.
Yeah,
I mean, we got to have you back because your story is phenomenal, and I just want to summarize a little bit, and then I want you to. What do you want people? So while I'm summarizing, I want you to think about what do you want people to walk away with from what you shared today, because there's so many women right now in your position as I'm on this committee, and we hear about the losses, we hear about the grief, we hear about postpartum, and what we're finding now is that there is this perimental health. It starts happening at conception, these hormone changes. So everything you
yeah,
speak of can happen from conception, it ups to 2 to 3 years post pregnancy. So people who are like, they're two, I shouldn't be feeling or acting like that. That's untrue. Science is now finding out that hormones and these
yeah.
hormonal changes can happen long after the child is here. And so I want you to think about that. And that's how I want you to kind of leave us today. But I just want to say, if you are a woman who is struggling with postpartum depression, you've been through miscarriages and loss and grief, first of all, those symptoms are normal because it is an abnormal situation that you're going to. Even though it's common, does not mean that it's normal for you. And so I want you to be able to hear what Sarita's saying is reach out for support, is do some of those things that if you feel like your mind is going all over the place or you don't have the support or you're feeling like harming yourself, the best thing, strength you could do is to do counter opposite of what you are doing, more than likely. And so if you have any comments and you're watching this as a post recording for Sarita, put it in our comments on my YouTube channel so that I can get them over to Sarita and she can answer those questions. But Sarita, in these last couple of minutes, I want to ask you, what would you like people to walk away knowing from the story that you told?
I want to say to anybody that's watching, and I say this to everybody, woman, man, child, always uh, accept who you are. If in that moment you are feeling weak or afraid, or I can't hold it, I can't carry it, or it's too much, or I just need to talk, honor that.
Yeah,
Always accept yourself, love yourself, be gentle with yourself when you're going through anything, really. Reach out. And I know people say that a lot. I don't like to be cliche about it, but it's so important to communicate. Even if you're like, I don't want to tell I'm not comfortable, I'm not ready to tell my whole story. Reach out just to talk. Talking
yeah,
is an exchange of energy. And when stuff is heavy on you, it's good to just, even if you're talking about something different and you're laughing and then easing a little bit to, feeling comfortable with talking about what you're going through, that helps release some of the heaviness. But going through postpartum, I think if I could do something different, it would have been I was surrounded by a community of amazing women who were there before I even had him. And um, I could have reached out to them, but I think I saw it as, well, they already have their stuff. I don't want to
mm,
bother anybody. I don't want to inconvenience anybody. We're all military women, so we're all going through it. I had these assumptions. Um, And even though it might have been a little awkward at moments for me to just let go of those assumptions, I think now looking back, it would have been, I would have been willing to go through that awkwardness to not get to the point that I got to. But I also realized that I got to the point I got to because that's where I was meant to be. Everything
that's
that happened in my life created who I am today, and it created this story that I have to share with people. And it created the person who I am always open to share and talk to about this. And I'm also very sensitive to women who go through this. I know kind of what to ask. I don't know everything, but I know things I went through. And so I know how to soften it and,
yeah,
talk to women who have just had a baby or who are going through pregnancy on a more intimate level. Like,
yeah,
okay, this kind of looks like what I went through. Maybe let me ask her, hey, do you need me to hold a baby really quick while you go take a shower? Have you taken a
yeah.
shower?
That's
Have
right.
you had a decent meal?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean, I would say to leave it, be open, love yourself, accept yourself, and honor yourself.
that's beautiful. Woo! I got to give 3 snaps on that. Love yourself, honor yourself, ask for help. And I do believe that your experiential piece, nobody can touch. Like I don't have that experience, even being a therapist and working with women with loss. I mean, that's something that, yes, I've had losses in my life, but we're talking about on a very intimate level. So Tyrone says, you are epitome of resilience. Thank you for your bravery and sharing.
Oh, thank you, Tyrone.
Uh, So if anyone has any questions for Sarita, put it in that chat. Definitely let us know. Leave a comment in the recording on the YouTube channel. And we thank Sarita and we will be having her back. And so we're going to move on to our next
Thank you.
resilient lady. Thank you, Sarita. All right. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, that was amazing story. And so I have the honor now, and just Sarita, if you're listening, Andre says this is awesome for people to hear. Teresa says, what a beautiful testimony. And I'm so thankful these issues are being addressed and support getting help. And we do believe in that. And so we are an advocate that a fit mindset is about getting mental health, emotional health support, physical health support, if that's what you need. And so I just want to shift gears a little bit and welcome Katrina Husky. And for those that don't know, this beautiful person is not only a sister, a friend, she is my cousin. And I'm just so proud of her for being on today. So I'm going to let her introduce herself, where she's from, how many children she has, and any fun facts she'd like to share before we move on. Welcome, Trina.
Hi, my name is Trina. I am going to be 38. I have two rambunctious little boys, 12, and one's going to be 6. Fun fact, I guess I am the 7th child of 9, which
That
is
is
crazy to say out loud.
that is a fun fact. So, um, one of the reasons why I picked Trina is actually she has been going through her own journey, and I will call it transformation and metamorphosis. And she really wanted an opportunity to share her story. And I said, please allow Fit Chat, Chit Chat to be the platform in order to do that. And so I am excited for her to share, but I'm also want to make it very clear that being on sharing stories is a vulnerable place to be. And so we would just want to honor your vulnerability and know that there are other people who may be experiencing some of the things that you have experienced when it comes to mental health and mental wellness and the struggles with that. And so I just want to open it up a little bit for you, Trina, to just say, when did you notice, and this may be reflectively now at 30 plus years old, that you were struggling with mental wellness?
Um, you know, I actually had the opportunity of talking to my 2 older sisters yesterday, and I've never shared my story except for with my therapist and my psychiatrist. So I finally told them after 37 years. And I realized yesterday that I think for me, I knew I had an issue when I was 7 years old. But at that time, I didn't know. I just thought I was an angry person. Like, that's just how I'm going to be. That's just who you are. But really, in high school is when I started noticing that I was doing things I probably shouldn't be doing. And I didn't know how to control my anger. So my mom had us in sports and dance our whole life. And a lot of it was sports. I got to take out my anger in sports. I got to play soccer and slide tackle girls, and I got to push them in basketball, and I got to hit a ball in softball and volleyball. And when I wasn't doing that and I didn't know where to put my anger, I was a cutter for, God, maybe like 12 years. 12 years I was a cutter, and nobody knew. Like, nobody. So when I knew I needed to get help was, I've been in therapy like my whole life. My dad left when I was 7. Um, I had a toxic relationship with my mother, and my mother right now is probably, she's a little crazy, we all know. However, she is probably one of the best grandmothers I know. She would do anything for her kids, but I knew when I got pregnant with my son that I needed to make myself better.
Okay. Let me stop you real quick, Trina. Whew. This is, news for me as well. Again, we are first cousins, and I did not know that she was self-harming, and I'm very familiar with that behavior because, as I mentioned in the first story, is that we don't suppress it; it just transfers, and it comes out in release in different behaviors. And one thing we know about most people who cut, it's usually not in an effort to kill themselves, it's to transfer that pain and actually have some control over the pain, which is very different from the pain that was caused from either dad leaving or a little bit toxic relationship with mom. And what Trina has talked about is she went from releasing the anger, as most of the time we hear with boys, through aggressive sports or playing roughly, when we can let that adrenaline and cortisol out on the soccer field or the football field, and it went to harming herself. And so for 12 years, this is something that was hidden. And one of the things that I know just in clinical practice, oftentimes it is a very hidden thing that you do, because otherwise, somebody's going to stop you, right? I mean, and then people will know when there is or can be very rough feelings attached to self-harm. So you can go ahead. I just wanted to kind of summarize that and give some education around it.
Yeah, so I like to tell people now that had I not gotten pregnant, I always tell people my son saved my life, because I was married, and that was a toxic marriage. And I guess for me, like not having that father figure put me in a different state of mind, and to not know what it's like to be loved by a man. So I try to find that in my ex-husband. And what I found out was I married my father.
Okay.
No matter what I did or what I said, I just couldn't get him to help me. I would cry for help from him. Yeah. And another reason I knew I needed to get help was because I started having really bad nightmares of the night that I lost my virginity was to a star football player that took me back to his house, and he raped me. And I try to block a lot of stuff out. And I think when you like start to like try to help yourself and make yourself grow, like it's like memories come back as nightmares. And they just come full circle. And I'm like, okay, I started getting angry and not knowing where to put that anger. So I was just an angry person. And when I had our second son, I was going through a divorce, and I had postpartum, and I locked myself in the bathroom while my 2-month-old was screaming in the middle of the night. And I said, if I open this door, I'm going to walk out of my house and I'm going to leave my kids. So I had to stay there, and I finally calmed down, and he finally calmed down, and I had to call my doctor the next day and be like, look, something's got to give. I feel like I'm going crazy here.
Yeah. So let me just stop you before you go on. Is I know that most often times where, yeah, I heard you say that you were in therapy all your life. Do you remember around what age you started?
So I think my mom put us in like a sibling group therapy when my dad left, maybe when I was like 8 or 9.
Okay. So, and that's pretty huge because, most people, and we're talking about cultural as well, therapy, that is not usually the first encounter that people want to let happen. It's usually let's pray about it or let's just keep it to ourselves. Let's not have that. But what I'm hearing you say is, that your mom was able to do that because after your father left. So there was like a reason specifically, not because maybe you had some other things that potentially could be going on. Sounds like that was like the start of it. And
Right.
just really normalizing that your experiences in life, nobody knows how we're going to be once we're in that. It's kind of like this new revelation. And like you said, feeling like you were going crazy. And Sarita said, I had that feeling also. It does make you feel crazy because nobody's talking about mental health and normalizing it. And so when I listen to you and I hear you say, you really needed that love and support from your father, oftentimes what we don't get in our primary childhood, I'm not saying you did or didn't, I'm just going from what you said, is we seek that in our partners. And they may have had their own baggage and don't know how to really give that kind of support and love. And I know Sarita has said, trying to piece me back together. I needed him to piece me back together when he may not have even known how to even start, right? It's kind of like I'm so used to her being this kind of pick up and go type of girl. And now she needs help. And I don't know what to do with that. So was this something that you've also hid from your spouse at the time, the cutting and things like, or was he aware of it?
No, he didn't know. Um, he didn't know I was a cutter. Um, all he knew was that I had anxiety.
Okay.
And actually, he intensified my anxiety, which should
Okay.
have been a sign.
So let's talk about that real quick because anxiety can look very different on people. What did anxiety look like on you? What were you doing? What was happening to your body? What was your thinking like?
So my anxiety is you fight or flight. I am a avoidance. Don't talk about how I feel. You just look like you're normal. But on the inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a heart attack. I just need to get out and run. I'm going to die. I can't breathe. And all this on the inside, but on the outside, everybody's like, oh no, you're strong. Like, you got this. But on the inside, I'm like, I am dying here. Like, and I can't tell anybody because, it's thing of like shame and guilt and embarrassment because your mental health is not talked about enough. And a lot of people suffer in silence. And we do just want that pain to go away. So, a lot of people who commit suicide, they just are wanting that pain to go away for that second, and it's accidental. And people would say, oh, it's selfish or, this and that. But I'm like, is it really selfish? Did you ask if they were okay? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So just really quick, Andre says so true. Back in the day, therapy was taboo in many cultures. And Sarita says, yes, I wanted something he didn't know how to give.
mhm.
And I think we do. And we talked about this on the first episode of Fit Chat, Chit Chat and Marriages. Like no one knows how because no one's really teaching this. So if we're expecting that from our partners and we don't get it, it looks as though they're the problem when these are things that we really need to do for ourselves as well and have their support. But if they have their own stuff, it's very hard for them to see that, especially when your presentation on the outside looks well put together, right? Because, that's what we look at. Even the
Mhm.
Bible tells us that the man looks at the outward appearance, God looks at the heart. So inside, you're like dread and I'm feeling like I'm gonna die. I'm having a heart attack. I got so much adrenaline dumping in me, which is why oftentimes people with anxiety are tired and fatigued. It's like having a marathon inside, but they're not executing, they're not releasing it. And so they're sitting with all those feelings and those chemicals in there from the brain to the body. And they don't know how to release that. And sometimes it can come out through cutting, and which is why it gives you that very second piece of release. And that pain that I'm feeling from my father or my mother, or, you mentioned a rape and things like that, I cannot think about that in that moment and let it transfer in this. And so this is why oftentimes things like self-harm or suicidal attempts, and I've been very openly about my stepfather's suicide, and that irrational mind that happens in that moment feels like, at least I won't feel this, not being able to ride that just long enough to know that this is temporary, or I will get through this. So Trina, I hear you when you said I went to sibling counsel, but when did you know you needed to go for yourself? Like, what was that breaking point for you?
So I was in and out of therapy a lot throughout, my first marriage, because hindsight's 2020, and there was obviously, it was not right for me to be in that marriage. But what really, really, I had to put my foot down and say, enough is enough, or you're going to die. Last year, October, the end of October, I was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I was crying for 3 days straight. And I had my anxiety meds next to my bed. And I was like, something's got to give. Like, I have to make this feeling stop. So I was taking anxiety pill. Okay, it wasn't working. I'll take another one. I'll take another one. Okay, it's not working. And I just kept going until I woke up 14 hours later. And I don't know what woke me up, but the next day I called my therapist and I said, I told him, I showed him my bottle. I said, it's almost empty. I just got it refilled. And he said, okay, you're going to inpatient. And I said, I can't go to inpatient. And he was like, no, you're going to inpatient, or I'm going to have you admitted. And because I have 2 kids and I share custody, I, in my head, was like, I can't have him use this against me in court. So I opted for an outpatient, and I didn't tell anybody. And my new husband at the time, well, new husband now, he's in Japan, and he's like, I need to get home. I need to take care of you. I need you to go to inpatient. But he can't come home. I said, I have to do outpatient. So how I hid it was I was going to work from 4 a.m. till 12. And then I would go to treatment from 12:30 to 5 p.m, 5 days a week.
Wow. I'm tearing up a little bit because I've been tearing up this whole session, y'all. Just to think of my cousin hurting like that, and feeling as if you can't reach out for someone, feeling as though the shame and the guilt is too much to talk about, or this other barrier that if I get help, it's going to be used against me. And I've heard that before, working with people who have had to come to mandatory therapy through Child Protective Services, feeling like you can because of the mental health piece. That just if you are struggling does not mean you're not a fit parent. Those are 2 different things. But for you to consider taking that was a thought that crossed your mind, and taking your anxiety medication in the hopes of possibly not waking up hurts my heart. But I do know, I know that God is amazing. Number 1. Number 2, that you had to deal with all of that. This was just last year. You're not even talking about 10 years ago, 5 years. You're talking about a year ago that you had to make the decision based on a pressure from your therapist to say you're going in involuntary treatment, and we all know that's 5150, and with potentially being there longer, but you having to be still rational enough for your babies.
Mm-hmm.
That's so powerful, Trina. I just want to, that I didn't know that. And that is something that, that's what happens is shame makes you hide. You know, shame makes you hide. And I will always quote Brene Brown, who talks about the difference between shame and guilt. Is guilt is I've done something bad, and shame is I am bad. And so there was something about you that felt like you were bad and that you have done something wrong. What I'm hearing is I was struggling and didn't know how to actually get the proper help that I need. So I just wanted to kind of say that, because there are people right now contemplating suicide. There are people right now that have the anxiety overwhelm them to the point they think they're going to die. And that's what anxiety pretty much says. Sarita says, I think so many people have that fear. I'm so glad you were here with us right now, Trina. So wow. So I'm sorry, I had to take a little break just to say that, but that, you know, as much as it hurts my heart to know that you had to struggle alone, it also pleases me to know that you are an advocate for mental health now, and that the shame is undone because you did reach out. And so you opted for it. That's intensive. That's what we call intensive outpatient, from, what'd you say, 1 to 5:30, 12 to 5:30?
Yeah, 12:30 to 5.
12:30 to 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
What was going on with you when he said that you're going inpatient?
Oh, the first thing I thought of was, oh, what am I going to do with my kids? Like, what are my kids going to think? What am I going to tell my family? Like, do I tell them, everything was, what is everybody going to think of me?
Right.
Because everybody is always like, oh, you can do it. Like, you're strong. And, I think for me, I feel like I do have to do everything on my own. And I have to be that for my kids, because I'm all they have. And I know they have like a nana and a papa, and, they have a dad and they have my sisters. But as a mom, like, like nobody's going to love your kids like you do.
Yeah. And so thinking about everybody else, not even for yourself in that moment, knowing that, and I think Sarita even said, is like, I got to be right for my babies. Like, you didn't even consider yourself, but it's what is everybody else going to think? And I think that's what keeps people entrapped and engulfed in these mental health challenges, is because it's like, people going to think I'm crazy. Like you said, it's going to get used against me. I'm not going to be able to see my baby. What am I going to tell them? So when you opted for 5 days a week outpatient, intensive outpatient, what were your thoughts the first day going in there?
Oh, I was so scared. Even like going in, and there's like, there's a group of people, and there's 4 psychologists, there's nurses, and I'm like, wow, am I in like, now people are going to think I'm in the loony bin, like walking into this place. Like, people are going to think I'm crazy. And still here, I'm thinking about what is people going to think about me? Not like, okay, you need to like be vulnerable. Like, this is the time. And I was nervous. I was so nervous. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's just going to be a bunch of women like just crying.
Mm-hmm.
But when I walked in, I'm like looking around and I'm like, there's more men than women.
Mm.
And that really shocked me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let me just, for the first day, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to take it all in. But no, they have you. I need you to introduce yourself. I need you to tell why you're here and what happened. And I'm sitting there like, I don't like to talk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really an introvert and I don't like to share. And she
Mhm.
was like, no, you're going to share. This is your safe place. And I'm like,
Right.
so she's like, what brought you here? And I was like, well, my therapist.
Right.
She was like, no, I need
Yeah.
you to go deeper.
Yeah.
And they like to say that I was at the end, they would say, oh, this is our assistant therapist right here.
Oh, okay.
Um, but the first day I was like, I'm not talking. I'm not talking. I'm going to listen to everybody else. And I'm just going to take what these doctors have to say and I'm going to use the tools for me.
Yeah.
But what I
Right.
quickly found out is you don't have tools if you're not vulnerable.
Ooh. Say that one more time.
You do not have tools if you're not vulnerable.
Did y'all hear that? You do not have tools if you are not vulnerable. That's a fit tip. Somebody write that down for me. Anyway, you do not have tools if you're not vulnerable. Why do you say that? I mean, I have my interpretation, but what for Trina, why do you say that?
Um, I can get all the tools I want. Like people can just be like, okay, here's this, here's this. But if I wasn't open up to opening about my story and my journey, how are they going to give me the tools that I need for me to use them?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Sarita. She put that if you do not have tools, if you're not vulnerable, and she says, yes, the guilt and shame can be debilitating as fear as well. Thank you, Sarita, because I am going to use that as a fit tip. And you're right, and if you're not willing to open up,
Mhm.
give space, and willing, you're just getting tools that working for someone else. Right. And so being able to use those and be able to say, I don't have it together, because if I did, I would be doing them.
Right.
And so the moment that you opened up, what did you realize was, and I heard you say it was scary going in. So I hope people understand that going to therapy can be a very scary place. And I love the fact that you see more men, because
Yeah.
that doesn't happen in traditional therapy. And so I love to hear that. And then number three is, what did it feel like when you did start allowing your vulnerability and you went, as you call it, going deep? What started happening with you?
Oh, I'm not even going to say it was easy. I'm not. It's probably one of the hardest things I've had to go through. And I mean, I'm still doing work now. But digging deep and pulling that out, like they literally had a fight with me. Like, you need to talk. Like, nope, that's surface. Nope, that's
Yeah.
surface. Nope. But when I'm like, one day I was like, she was like, okay, write a letter. And I was like, fine. Like, they're like, you're so stubborn. I was
Right.
like, fine, here it is. I'm letting it all out. Here's everything. And people in my group were like sobbing. And I'm like looking at them like, what is wrong with you people? Like, it's okay. And that I think is the first time they're like, you have extreme PTSD. Your life is traumatic. And I'm like, thinking, I'm like, is it about bad people?
Mhm.
And they're like, I'm surprised. One girl was like, I'm surprised, like, you're not an alcoholic on drugs, just strung out somewhere or dead.
Mm, yeah. And you mentioned a little bit at the beginning, you would have to know her family to kind of know what strength looks like. And, the thing, and obviously just knowing our relationship, and obviously
Mhm.
um, just that may be what may be a level 3 for people, or I should say a level 10 for people is a level 3 for you, just being based on what you went through. And remember, when we go through things in life, and especially before the age of 7, it's really all normalized. It just seems normal that, and I'm using just generalizations, like dad is an alcoholic. It's normal that, there was fighting. There's normal that these things are happening. And so when you have a high threshold of recognizing what may reflectively now look like trauma, it may seem pretty surface for you. And that's how you had been living for a long time, even though you were having these behaviors. It was just transferring. You were suppressing it, but it was transferring. And so I'm glad you did mention that it was hard. And we tell people typically in therapy, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Does that
That's true.
Okay. That
Yes.
statement.
Yes, but I would like to say that therapists need to say more. It's going to get really bad before it gets really good.
That was a little that sugar quoting.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I tell my therapist, my therapist is like, girl, I can't with you. I can't. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like to sugarcoat anymore because I just can't with people. Like, no, don't tell me I'm strong. You tell me, like, girl, get it together.
Yeah.
Get it together and I will help you.
Yeah.
Like, and I think for me, like now I want to help people. Like I suffered for so long in silence. And I am probably so annoying to my children because I have an emotion chart and I'm like, okay, tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And Jalen, my 12-year-old, he was like, really, Mom, you're embarrassing. And I'm like, nope, I do not want you guys to like suffer like I did. And I was the type at first, you don't cry in front of your kids. You don't show them that you're weak because growing up, if you cried, you're weak, you're dramatic. And even my ex-husband, when, I was like, when we were going through it, he was like, don't cry in front of our son. You need to get it together. And one day I just told him, I said, I'm going to cry in front of my son if I want to. Like, he's going to see that his mother can break down, but she will get back up again.
Yeah. Ooh, that's beautiful. So you said something, and it almost reminds me of kind of like in context of what Sarita was talking about is like you experienced this loss. So you had these losses, whether it's loss of attachment to the kind of relationship you wanted with your father, whether it's the absence, whether it's the toxicity of the relationship with mom, that's loss, having your virginity taken from you, that's a loss. So you had all these losses. So now when you have your children, you want to dig in. And that's what she was saying is like, I had these losses. So I kind of was vigilant to how I was going to be. And even that in itself, as we won't go through diagnosis or anything like that, but that hypervigilance is a sector of post-traumatic stress. And so when we're talking about this hypervigilance and this kind of startle reaction, is almost for you, it's almost something like in the way so they don't have to experience what you experience, but in that same breath that you can't take away what they're going to experience. So it's almost like I'm digging in and clutching in. He's using his voice like, Mom, this is a lot. Having him use mature emotions like, I don't know if this is exhilaration or, being, but, that comes from a place, feeling detached comes from a place. So walking into therapy for the first time with a lot of people or one person is, what does this mean? The first thing that comes up is like this negativity. What are people going to think of me? Oh my gosh, I'm walking into here. It's the lonely bin, instead of the reframe of, I'm finally getting the help that I need. I need to walk in and be vulnerable. I'm sick of being hostage to my behaviors and my emotions. It was the counter opposite. And Sarita said, yes, digging up stuff with avoiding for so long gets ugly, but it's a beautiful ugly. And Jackie says, love you, Trina Turner. So you're saying your experience. I want to just finish the outpatient piece of it, because we are talking to people who are going to probably take this for the first time and question if they should walk into therapy or not. And so we get it, childhood kind of forced, right? I mean, you don't tell your mom no, so you go, but then throughout, and then making the first step on your own. But then when things get worse, because remember, you had not got to the point of deep vulnerability. And sometimes I see that even in the therapy office, right? Is like, okay, I cannot heal a lie, and I cannot heal what you do not tell me. And so it sounds like this is the first time that it got so intense in this outpatient program that you needed to do the work. And so tell me the encounters. Okay, I heard you said the tools. I heard you said you finally wrote a letter. What else came out of it by the time, and how long was the program? That was another question.
So this program was, it all goes by your insurance, but they could give you more. So I like to tell them, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm your longest patient you had. They're like, that's fine because we know you won't come back.
Right.
Mine was like 90 days. It actually just ended in January.
Okay. All right. So from the time that you walked in into the time that you completed, what was your takeaway? What did you notice? What changed?
So they supported me, and like I didn't hold back anymore. It was my safe spot, and I would actually tell them, I'm not sure I want to leave. I think I need to take you guys with me in my everyday life and have you guys walk around with me.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing was I couldn't walk outside by myself in the dark. Like I would have straight up panic attacks.
Mm.
And now I walk outside and I'm like, I wish somebody would.
Oh, okay. So you went way on the other extreme. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And now I actually I am going into another treatment that, it's more intense for PTSD, for trauma.
Yeah. So I'm hearing over the course of those 90 days, which is pretty intensive,
Mhm.
think about outpatient programs, especially 5 days a week I've heard of 5 days, 3 days, and then finally graduating out. But 5 days going from fear to extreme confidence I mean, if we had to sum it up in one sentence about, I walked in with fear and I walked out with this boost of confidence that, I don't have to allow fear to be the driving force. And that's one thing that I've been talking about here recently is, going out and doing something, even with your knees shaking, that just means fear does not dictate your behavior. And what you've done is went from, okay, there's nighttime, I'm fearful, I don't go. And I would imagine those are all a cluster of the thoughts that the worst, outcomes. And that's what anxiety does. It predicts all of the futuristic outcomes to be the worst case scenarios. And
Mhm.
so now what I'm hearing is even in your worst case scenario, I got your best scenario, which is you better not. So I'd love to hear that. And then let me just read the comments. Teresa Newsom says, this is a great testimony because so many years mental health has been tagged as a bad thing. For so many older people, we've had to just bury and be made to feel ashamed. Getting help is so important. You're amazing and I love you.
Oh, I love you too, Auntie.
And so this has brought confidence, it's brought emotional awareness. And what I'm also hearing is I feel the need to protect myself and my children by creating space for them to not only have emotional intelligence, but to also express. And I think that's so amazing, especially for young men, young boys to hear is that it's okay to have this emotional expression and not to be ashamed of your feelings. And when you tried to implement that, you were supported in your last relationship, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about what makes you make the next step now to continue therapy.
I just want to be the best woman I can be. I don't even want to say like mom or wife because I have come to find that I'm more than just a mom and I'm more than just a wife. And um, back then, that was all I was. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. Like, you asked me, oh, what is Trina like? Well, I like to be a mom. I watch my kid, duh.
Yeah.
But now, like, I like to travel. Now I'll go without my kids. Their dad's like, oh, you want to take? Yep, thank you, bye. I'm going.
Yes, yes. And I think that's important because when I used to run group, and I part of the group open up was, who are you? And oftentimes people affiliated with their roles. And I said, okay, so what if you weren't a mom? If you weren't a wife? They had nothing to write on the paper. And so it's not saying that you are not these amazing things in those roles. It's just, I'm more than that, as you said, and really identifying. And which kind of brings me back to like relationships that we talked about in our last marriage. Fit Chat, Chit Chat is, we have these individual baggages and we're coming in. And so if you didn't identify with something outside of your role of being a wife or a mom, then what are you in the relationship, right? And so
Right.
some of it is toxic or lack of support in the relationship, but some of us, we're so young, we don't know self-identification. And as a 37-year-old woman, you're saying, I'm learning that now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an amazing place to be. And Sarita is supporting you on that. Yes, ma'am. And so in your bravery, in your story, in your strength, in your resiliency, what have you noticed now with anxiety? Is it, let's just be very open, is it still there? Is it more managed? What does that look like now?
So my anxiety is still there. I now know how to deal with it without, going to cutting or taking a pill. Now I work out. It releases endorphins and it tires me out just like it would if I was having a panic attack.
Mhm.
I go for a walk. I tell my kids, let's go. We're going to go walk the dog. Jet says, Mommy, let's go on a ride walk because he likes to ride a scooter. I'm like, let's go. I'll go get my nails done. I'll go get a massage. And sometimes it's as simple as I have a Monday church group with my girls. And, just last week, one of them, the leader of our group, she was like, you've been very quiet on the calls. And I'm like, I'm just taking everything in because, I'm not feeling it right now. But I want to be here. I want to be present. I want to hear you guys. And she was like, okay, got it.
Yeah. Wow. So you just talked about what fit is, what finding inner transformation is. I mean, if everyone heard, I opened up, it's more the fit mindset. And fit, again, stands for finding inner transformation. And it's a play on words. And yes, we want to be fit. That means we want to be our optimal self. But I just heard Trina say exercise, physical, getting the support, the mental, emotional regulation by going to, learning the tools, right? And getting that mind, body, and spirit together, and then showing up for her church, even when she doesn't feel like she's showing up. And sometimes that is all the effort that some people just need to bring themselves to, is being in a space and being in community and, feeling better after you did it. I mean, I'm not always like, yeah, work out. But when I do, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I worked out.
Yes.
Because it does that. And one of the reasons why I love to kind of prescribe medication, exercise medication, is that it does the same thing, right? If I'm getting adrenaline from anxiety or panic or fear, then that adrenaline needs to be used. And that's a message to your body to say, oh my gosh, I need to do something. I need to move. And so going for a walk, having the exercise, getting that release of endorphins and dopamine dumping and norepinephrine and all those great feel good can make you then, after you do your supercharges, come down and get that same fatigue, but in a good way, knowing you really took care of your body. And so I'm super proud of you, more than you even know. And I know that everyone here that is listening to it, and if you have any questions specifically for Trina, put it in the chat. If you're watching this in a recording, definitely put it in the comments of the YouTube, and I will get those comments over to Trina to answer. So I want to spend these next few minutes asking, I heard you say, now I want to help other people. What does that look like for you based on your experience?
So what I want to do is, my whole goal is I want to be able to tell my story to teenagers, because again, like, I think that's where it all starts. A lot of teenagers can't talk to their parents about stuff. And I just feel like lately it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to, my husband's in the military and I hear and see stories. And even in my treatment, I seen a lot of military people and they're like suffering in silence. And it just broke my heart. And I'm like, okay, God, like, what can I do?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you even help one person, you can be so much more to them than you know.
Yeah.
And so for me, I want to be an advocate, and I've been trying to get with groups just to like talk and meet online and to give people advice and to let them know, like, you don't have to suffer in silence. There's no shame or embarrassment, and find that
Mm-hmm.
one person you can just talk to.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear that. You might want to look up, and they're gonna get me if I say it wrong, but I know it's NAMI. There's NAMI chapters everywhere. National Alliance of Mental Illness, if I'm not mistaken. Those are everywhere. They're always looking for advocates and volunteers to be able to share your story. And that's what God has created us to do. None of this is accidental. And I know sometimes the difficulty can be with, well, why did I go through this and how come? And, Sarita talked a lot about being angry with God. I would imagine there was a time with you with that. I mean, oftentimes when we don't have understanding, and sometimes it's not meant to be understood, but it is meant to share. It is meant to say, I'm still imperfect. And I heard you when you said, I still have the anxiety every once in a while. However, now I do these things to manage it. I do these things that they don't run my life. They don't dictate how I'm going to move as a person, as a mom, as a friend, as a wife. And even when we do have those moments, and I would say no one's out of the loop at all, is that, what tools? And I love, let me go back. If you don't have tools, you're not being vulnerable. I'm being vulnerable. You don't have tools. And so Sarita's saying amazing. Thank you for sharing your story, Trina. And thank you for creating a platform. Absolutely. That's exactly what this is for women, men, children. And we have some amazing highlights coming up soon that I'll talk about. But I do believe that there is a place for your voice starting here. This is not the first time that I'm going to hear of Trina Husky. I want to call you Turner. I'm getting used to it. But there's a space for you in that if you do just touch one person, there's someone who's going to look back over this YouTube video or Facebook and say, wow, that's the courage I needed to walk in there. And I had a toxic or chaotic childhood. Maybe I'm not as attached to my father as I want to be, and that there's support for that. Sometimes we think we need to get to the point of suicidality or this extreme to walk in the therapy office. I used to see people just for, I'm getting bad grades, 13 or 14-year-old, and I feel bad about myself. I feel like I'm not good enough. I mean, there's not one thing that you can't walk in there and talk about. I always say therapists see therapists, just like doctors see doctors. They're not performing their own surgery. Okay, hello. And if they are, I got some questions. I have some questions. Before I wrap up, I want to ask Trina if there's one thing you can tell one person to take away from your story today, what would you tell them?
Oh man, one thing. Probably you don't have to suffer in silence, and there is people out there who will help you and not judge you, and don't go get help because you are embarrassed. There's tons of people, and even if you tell somebody, hey, they're probably going through the same thing, or they can probably relate to you. So just find somebody who have a safe place with and let them know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And therapy should be a safe place. Clergy, pastors, because I don't want to knock those. I mean, we know that there's
Right.
all sorts of ways for intervention. Maybe prevention. That's what I'm hearing Trina say is prevention. Like I'm already trying to get my kids to identify their emotion and have a vocabulary so they can talk about these things. That's prevention work that we as parents can start doing with our children. I know my daughter would be quick. Oh, you're angry. No, I'm frustrated. Oh, you right. You right, girl. Put me. That's what happens when you educate them too much. But it's a good thing that they can have that. And so I just want to thank Sarita and Trina for coming on today. I've teared up 2 times, y'all. I'm not having y'all back on no more. Just playing. But these tears are tears of joy, and of course, there was sadness to know that they were suffering through this, but the joy that they can now come on in a healing place and talk about it and normalize mental health, whether it's because of loss of miscarriages, or postpartum depression, and or dealing with anxiety and trauma or toxicity, and just talk about it. When we talk about it, we are releasing it. The moment we keep stuffing and suppressing, we're just transferring it. And then we take that into relationships, and we take that into our parenting, we take it on a job. It's a cluster of starting to be characteristics and personality. So we have to start breaking those bonds and those barriers and say, oh, it's okay to go seek, pastoral counseling or therapy, or, some people do it through music and art, whatever your space is, use that as a way to heal, to grow, and to strengthen yourself. And so thank you, thank you, thank you, ladies. Again, if you have questions, let me know. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Finding Inner Transformation. Find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Fit Therapist. Our next Fit Chat, Chit Chat, I'm super excited about will be April 17th. Ever thought about doing bodybuilding competitions? Ever thought about losing weight? Ever thought about how do people stay so disciplined? How do you cut weight? How do you gain muscle mass? So I have a panel of coaches and bodybuilders, previous and current, that are coming on to give them the ins, the outs, the juice, why we can't stay on these diets, why we fail, why, all these great things. So join us April 17th. And remember, peace, love, God bless, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.